Well, hello and good morning to everyone joining us. Thank you so much for being here. This is Abrahani behind the LiDAR account. Together with me today, we have co-host Dane Milton. Good morning, Milton. How are you?
GM, glad to be here.
We're so happy you're here. Vasia, our good friend, today we'll be chatting with Vasia, the CEO of Moments Agency. And so this is an artist spotlight, and Vasia is an artist in representing people, businesses, you name it. She is great at it. Good morning, Vasia. How are you?
GM, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm super excited to have this conversation today and just obviously be on stage with you guys. Milton's definitely one of my favorite co-hosts as well, so it's nice seeing him and being actually on the opposite end instead of hosting with him. So thanks again for inviting me on. I'm super excited to be here.
This is going to be a blast. That is right. For those that don't know, Vasia just recently started hosting spaces on Wednesdays with specific topics, very cool topics, one of which represents what she does for artists in the space and businesses in the space is representing people that are doing great things. And so you had a fun conversation. We'll dive in a little later about that. But if you are not following Vasia, you're going to want to be following Vasia and her journey as she shares a little bit more of what she's up to and what she's doing. So, Milton, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, absolutely. And looking forward to having Vasia bring some interesting topics to light. We had a great conversation, as you mentioned, last week, and we look forward to building on that this week. So trying to take some current events and some topics that are getting a lot of attention on the timeline and having longer form discussions about those. So look forward to tomorrow's space with us. And yeah, let's get started. So Vasia, we always have a pretty simple question when we start off, and we want you to tell us about you. So who is Vasiamakris?
Honestly, I read that question. I was like, this is probably the hardest question. Um, I feel like many of us, myself included, like we typically define ourselves with what we do. So, for example, I used to be a teacher. So I would say, yeah, I'm a teacher. Like that's who I am, or I do this and I do that. And it's like, that's not really who we are. It's just kind of things that we do. So I'm going to try to take a different approach and angle to it. I think I'm just in general, like a pretty curious person. I definitely love learning and I love talking to people and learning their stories and different things. And I'm constantly reading as well. I think just looking to improve and I'm also pretty simple in the sense that I really appreciate the simple things in life. Like I'm not impressed by crazy, flashy, etc. lifestyles. I'm more simple, and I definitely, although I didn't consider myself one prior to Web3, I definitely consider myself a creator in the sense that I just like creating new things, and it's not necessarily art like some of you down below listening, but I definitely create in the sense of just making new things, having these ideas, creating different, whether it's projects, events, activations, collections, and just with the purpose of having some sort of larger impact. I think that's what really fulfills me in general, and kind of one of the things that actually was my high school like alma mater or whatever it was, but I resonates really hard now as I get older is kind of just leaving the world a better place than we found it. So whatever I do, I try to kind of keep that always in mind, and it's one of the driving forces regarding the things that I focus on right now and get to create. So I don't know if that was one of the weirder answers that you've gotten for that question, but that I guess sums up some of the things that are resonating with me right now in this kind of chapter of life. So.
No, that answers my question for sure. I love that different spin because you and I have been on the spaces where you've had to say the same thing over and over again. So that's a nice spin on it. You're curious and you definitely want to create a larger impact. I noticed that was part of your video for Moments Agency was to connect, inspire, and create a larger impact. And I know that you've done some big efforts in that regard, especially the impact side. Do you want to touch on? Because I think it's a good topic, especially considering we're talking with Light Art, who is a nonprofit. You've worked with some nonprofits, and then of course we've got the Castle Party we're looking forward to in 2025 that we're helping plan out. Where Trevor is a big proponent of philanthropy and has done the the art auctions last year, sorry, 2 years ago now. There was a hiatus last year, but 2 years ago was through Maker's Place, raising six figures for Maggie's charity. And I know we're looking ahead to 2025 for big things there with charity. But can you mention a few instances that you've worked to try and create a larger impact in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy. I think it goes back to, when I actually first started my first year of college, I went to Baruch for nonprofit. Like I wanted to be hands-on in the field, working with people and just, helping out and making an impact. And I ended up completely changing careers and going into teaching, where I actually was in a classroom working with little kids. I was an elementary school teacher, which I really loved, and also having an impact on their lives. And as cliche as it sounds, like a teacher can really make a difference. And that was the type of teacher that I was. And now transitioning into Web3, I didn't even realize it in the beginning, but hearing stories from different people that we worked with, different artists, and, working at the Crypt gallery and being able to exhibit people's artwork, people that were on the other side of the world, and being able to exhibit their work in New York and LA and these huge cities, and just hearing their feedback. It was incredible when I started realizing like we actually had a huge impact on people's lives, and that really resonated with me. And I think it's a matter of just using the opportunities and the blessings that I've been given in order to give back to the community and to others. I think that's always going to be my driving force. I think a larger impact in the sense of charity work as well. Last year in Miami for Art Week, I worked with Threes Basketball, which was this like 3-on-3 basketball concept. But they wanted to, if you're familiar with And One in the mixtape, like think of it that way. They go city to city, put on these 3-on-3 basketball tournaments. But outside of that, they wanted to really encompass the basketball culture. So what exactly is that? It's the music scene. It's the food scene. It's the art scene as well, and the street art, and the graffiti and all those different concepts. So I basically helped produce that event, and we had a former Miami Heat, Mario Chalmers came to the event. He did a free basketball clinic. I helped organize. We brought in 100 local Miami kids. They got to get coached by Mario Chalmers. There was a couple of different workshops, art workshops. Actually, Sabet came down and did a free art workshop with them. There was a couple of artists that also contributed to that. And we also had like a mindfulness goal setting. If you guys don't know, G is for Great Genesis. Actually, he's down here listening. Thanks for popping in, G. He is doing amazing things with his mom. He was our youth ambassador, and G did a bunch of workshops with the kids regarding goal settings, and just coming from another peer-to-peer interaction was super fulfilling. And at the end, we also had auctions going on Nifty Gateway with hand-painted basketballs and sneakers. So Alien Queen contributed, Gabe Weiss did some work. We had a bunch of different artists creating these physicals, and in order to participate, you email and credit card, like regular people were walking through the park and coming to this event, and they were putting in bids on Nifty Gateway, and all of the money raised went to charity pretty much. So I think that was for me a great way to integrate Web3 in the background and have that larger impact, and more importantly, putting art at the forefront of this event, which was the most exciting part for me. So that was a bit of a tangent, Milton, but I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, 1,000%. I like the way that you spun impact in a couple different ways. One being giving back, and two about bringing in new people and onboarding, educating. You talked about having an educational background that doesn't define you, but I think it's a large part of who you are, and you're very good at it. And that brings us to a really good segue about entering the NFT space, because I think what you did at the Crypt was a great way to onboard new people, even if it was passive, even if it was something that they saw that was in their subconscious. It was exposure, right? So I'd love to hear about your history in the NFT space in particular, and I'm pretty sure that starts around the Crypt Gallery.
Yeah, that was back in 2021. Um, so many of you might, I guess, know King of Midtown. Tommy was my friend, and he started collecting and buying digital art, and I just didn't get it, but I knew he wasn't stupid. He was someone that I spoke to about, real estate and investment and crypto, and so I knew I was just not getting it. And when he explained it to me with the whole metaverse concept, and at the time I was teaching through COVID and the year after, and if kids had the ability to put on these goggles and walk around my virtual classroom, and it would have been a completely different experience. So that's kind of how it first clicked for me. And then I was like, okay, inevitably this is the future. At the same time, I was doing event productions and just side gigging different things. And Tommy had the whole concept of bringing it, as reopening was happening, bringing digital art to an in-person location. And what better place than hospitality, where you're at the center of, it's the epicenter of all the restaurants on property. Obviously, guests going to their hotel rooms, and we're talking about guests internationally, but also people there visiting for business, families. I mean, of all different ages. So it was just such a high traffic, high volume area that it was honestly the perfect location to build a digital gallery. And it was 24 hours. Like, we didn't need to staff it. The doors are always open in the hotel lobby and lounge area. So it was extremely beneficial. And, hospitality at the time was bleeding from COVID because they were shut down for so long, unfortunately. So when he approached Dream and had that whole concept and pitch, they didn't really know, I think, fully what we were planning on doing. But they opened their doors, and I'll forever be grateful that they took that risk on us. And, it was literally, I think 3 weeks later, it was the end of the school year. And it was a very quick decision from Dream to, instead of letting us open in New York, they pretty much were like, you guys are going out to LA, because we're both based in New York. New York was still shut down. And so they were like, you're going to go to LA, you're going to go to LA in 3 weeks because it's the LA Art Show. And that's your opening weekend. And so we kind of looked at each other and we're like, okay, well, someone's got to go out there and start figuring this out. And Tommy does have a family, so it was a little bit more difficult for him to be the one to travel for so long. So yeah, I basically went to LA for the very first time. And a lot of it was fake it till you make it. I was extremely new to NFT land and Web3. And thank God I was, because I would have been way too starstruck by some of the artists that showed up that first night to really fully understand who they were. But no, in all seriousness, it was it was a really big weekend for us. I still to this day in amazement at all the love that we got, and extremely grateful for the people that flew from all over to come to that, people that came from the LA Art Show, and people that were just walking down the street and were like, we just saw a party happening and this looked cool. And I think LA was also at the time extremely important because they were more advanced regarding the education. They knew what NFTs were. They walked through that lobby and they were like, oh shit, this is an NFT. Versus New York, a year later, they were still like, what is that? They didn't fully understand yet. But yeah, it was really magical, and it came together super well. To the point that, once Tommy and I pretty much flew back to New York after, we looked at each other and we're like, yo, this has to be full time. And I had gotten my master's in ESL. I was the director of the ESL department. So I was working with kids learning English. And I just got in my master's that May and put in my resignation that August. And I have not for a minute looked back. Web3 has completely changed the trajectory of my life, and I'm extremely grateful for it. And it just made me realize how backwards I think a lot of the systems currently are. And I mean, I can kind of go on, and I won't go on a tangent about, the current influencer culture and just all these other things, but I really love the focus that it brought to creators. And that's really the community, I think, is what really made me fall in love with Web3 and the impact that it can have. So yeah, that was kind of my introduction to Web3. And then, LA was in July 2021, and then we opened New York within the same year. So we had 2 of the locations, and we were doing a bunch of events in between for NFT LA, NFT NYC, a bunch of different pop-ups. We had done the Christie's build. They had their first Ethereum-based auction September of 2021. So it was literally a month or 2 after opening in LA. They had the Art Blocks Curio cards, and no one else was really doing in-person exhibitions, setups the way that we had. So Christie's called us and we did that. And there was a bunch of different people behind the scenes that we've worked with across industries that, again, I just kind of never thought my life would be like this, but I'm extremely grateful for the incredible journey and all of the things that I've learned along the way. So that was a very long response to your question, Milton, but I hope I hit on everything.
Wow, that is super impressive. And what a great introductory into the space, by meeting, but also introducing people to NFT without really fully diving deep into it, which is so impressive, by the way. But you are a fast learner. And you just mentioned very briefly how community started to impact your journey and your trajectory into entering the NFT space, that you went from doing that and helping to building Moments Agency. And so I just want to have you dive in a little bit into how you started with Moments Agency, and what is Moments Agency?
Yeah, absolutely. So I it was about a year ago, last August, that I, for multiple reasons, put my resignation in at the gallery as COO. So I more just took a silent position, and I wanted to really focus on. I think there was a huge gap in the industry that no one was really addressing, and a lot of that comes down to education and onboarding. And if you listen to some of my spaces or see my tweets, I mean, I talk about it a lot. I think the biggest problem is the fact that we aren't having more people come into using this technology. And a huge part of this, um, goes back to using, I guess, my background and strengths in order to address the problem. One of the things that Moments Agency, the way that I describe it is there's three main pillars. One of the things that I focus on is, working with artists. And unlike a traditional agency, it's not like the 10, 15 artists and that's all I work with. I think it's a bit limiting in terms of bandwidth in order to be set up like that. It's just personally not what I gravitate toward. I do like knowing what everyone is doing and what everyone is working on, and then connecting the dots when it's appropriate. And that kind of segues into my second pillar of brands. And this is for me my most important and passionate one, because I think a huge part of onboarding is going to be working with brands and pitching to brands and explaining to them why they need to be using the technology behind the scenes in terms of enhancing what they're already doing. So we saw a lot of brands in the beginning coming into this space and GMing and WAGMing and whatever, and really targeting and releasing these collections and targeting the Web3 audience. And I think that approach was a bit backwards, where if we want to grow and we want to bring in the masses, we need to target brands and we need to embed ourselves into what they're already doing. It's a very, make it simple so that people are not learning anything new. It's not crypto. It's not wallets. It's safe and secure, and essentially just use the technology to enhance their current client's experience and make it beneficial for the brands as well, of course. And more importantly, how do we take artists that are in this space and put them at the forefront where art is the focus and the technology is in the background? And so that's some of the conversations that I'm having right now is basically pitching brands these ideas and concepts where we're doing that. And for me, that's how we're really going to bring in a lot of new users. And it's really about building that type of proof of concept, if you will, so that other brands can slowly follow. And I think a lot of brands came in, got burned, and are not going to return to the space, or they don't want to take the risk, or there's still a lot of existing stigma around the word NFT that we need to break slowly through education and through conversations with these brands and holding their hand and bringing them back in here. So for me, under Moments, that's one of the main focuses that I do have. And then the third, just basically putting together a lot of the experience that I have from the Crypt Gallery is production and events. And I've worked with brands like Transient Labs was the first official event under Moments. They hired me to go to NFC Lisbon this past year, and we did a whole activation with Gabe Weiss, and there was a couple of different, curating and all that stuff. But more importantly, these types of events and activations, it's how do we, number one, present the artwork nicely. Like nothing will bother me more than artwork that's being exhibited and it's just not done correctly or to a high standard. Let's put it that way. And the other portion is really just creating an experience. Like people are going to all these different conferences. There's a bunch of different booths and areas and things going on. How do they walk away remembering your brand or your activation? Like you want to be memorable and you want to leave that lasting impression. And so it's really working one-on-one with some of these brands or communities and creating those types of moments for their consumers and their audiences. So it's, again, the artists, the brands, and these IRL activations.
That is so impressive. And I agree. I think that bringing brands together with what's happening in the space in in an easy transfer way and tech behind art in front is always the benefit, but it's always the way to do it. People would come for the art and stay for the community and enjoy tech after that's been established. And so what a cool way of doing that through Moments. And last week on Spaces with Milton, co-hosting with you, you guys were talking about a more artistry focus, and our community is a little bit more art collector focus. And so I would love for you to touch a little bit more of what Moments Gallery can do for artists in the space, artists or collectors in the space. What is something that you are actively doing and participating for artists?
Yeah, for artists, well, again, I like to keep tabs. It sounds weird, but I like to keep tabs and know what everyone is doing because I do love to connect the dots. And so, one of the things, like when in conversations with certain brands, immediately I go through the Rolodex and I pick out a few artists that I think, would work well with that brand. The style might fit well. It might just be a good fit for the project, and then just see what artists the brands kind of gravitate toward, and then connecting those dots and making those connections. And nothing would bring me more joy than to be able to be doing that more consistently for people here. And especially as, the bear market hits, like we have all learned the lesson. We can't, invest our eggs into one basket. We have to diversify as much as possible. And so kind of creating these infrastructures, putting the infrastructure in place where artists can depend or can still focus fully on art because they're depending on multiple streams of income now. And again, just getting their art also in front of just a wider audience, breaking out of their current echo chamber and expanding. So that's one thing for sure I love to do, and why I love to just continue to keep up and maintain certain relationships with artists. And then outside of that, the more closer, I guess, involvement, or a good example would be with Trevor Jones. He was the first artist that I officially worked with under Moments, and that was to help him release his latest Crypto Angels collection. And it was a multiple stages, I guess, of a release. He had the physical bronze sculptures, then he did his Genesis ordinal drop, and now we're working together for Castle Party 2025, which if you guys don't know about, make sure to join our space tomorrow. Milton and I are hosting the Crypto Angels spaces Thursday at noon Eastern. But yeah, these are definitely, that's more of a closer kind of relationship. I just am mindful with who I work with, to be honest, not, in the sense of there's obviously only a certain amount of hours in a day. And so these types of partnerships do take more time, and that limits all the different things that I can do. So I really try to, I guess, connect the dots is the way that I like to approach things more, just because I feel like I can contribute and have a larger impact that way, instead of kind of signing again like the 4 or 5 different artists and I'm exclusively only working with them.
Vasia, I wanted to touch on something here because I'm going back to your points about working with artists, connecting the dots, working with brands and production and events. And I wanted to cover a couple of those in one. So I think you connected the dots really well. You mentioned working with the Threes basketball tournament, and Gabe Weiss was part of that. So you built that connection with Gabe. And then when it came time to produce an event at Non-Fungible Conference, there was a great Transient Labs lounge there that I spent a lot of time in, and you had an awesome activation with Gabe there, which was at the forefront. As soon as you walked in, I thought it was a great highlight, and it really got people's attention because they could see Gabe doing portrait work. But that was a very cool piece that I collected, and there were multiple parts to it. There was 3 in 1. So could you kind of dive in? So maybe some of the artists that are here, if they're looking at possibly wanting to do something like that in the future with Moments, how did you develop that, and break down exactly what was entailed in that package, that 3 in 1?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for collecting and supporting that. That was definitely a fun activation. And the conversation actually started with Transient Labs first. So they had sponsored an FC Lisbon, and they had a main lounge area to activate in, and they didn't really know what to do or what would be the best approach. So they called me in, and my conversations always start with questions. It's, what are your goals? What's the impact you want to have? Who's your target demographic? Like, these are the types of questions that I typically have to better understand, and then also just be able to create a better action plan that's really fulfilling their needs. So all my conversations are pretty much customized, is what I'm trying to say. And then, the conversation was really like, how do we make sure in a huge conference like NFC Lisbon, where there's a bunch of different activations, communities, booths, like talks, there's so much going on. How do we, number one, put art at the forefront? And number two, how do we stay memorable? How do we make sure that people walk out and they remember Transient Labs and that activation and not get lost amongst the noise? So it was really about creating a kind of experience and not just exhibiting artwork on screens. So obviously that the curational aspect was a part of it, and having the artists that a lot of them were there in attendance and their artwork was being exhibited. But the whole component with Gabe was meant to be something that Gabe could also interact with the guest. And Gabe didn't come into the picture until later in the conversation, where it was like, what artist would potentially fit this? But we wanted them to have a digital and a physical. So I'm a huge component of bridging, obviously, the two. I think it's a great tool to use and can be used very strategically, especially during these IRL activations. And so the actual collection was, you purchased one NFT. This is how I was explaining it to people in person. It was, you're purchasing the original NFT, and it unlocks access to the other two. So you're essentially getting 3 for 1. The original NFT was a artwork that Gabe had made. So that was just the piece that you were buying. And then in person, if you were there, you got to sit down in basically main stage. And just like when you were a kid and used to go to a fair or a festival and people would draw your portrait, that's basically what Gabe did in his own style. For people that don't know, Gabe Weiss is an abstract artist. So he basically sat down, had a conversation. He's also a great personality for those that haven't met Gabe yet. But this also was, came into consideration when thinking about who would be a good fit for this. Gabe will sit down and have a conversation with anyone. He'll have a great time. He's a great personality, great energy. And so he basically sat down with people and drew the collector in his own style and got to ask them questions. And it was almost like a participation. It was like a co-creation. So then that portrait was minted as an NFT. So that's the second NFT collectors got. The third NFT was essentially taking everyone's portraits and putting them together. So it was a community NFT that was airdropped to people after the event. And then the fourth component was that people got to redeem a free print as well. So you essentially got 4 items for that one mint price. And again, it was just meant to tap into providing the digital, providing a physical, having a memorable experience, and then making it about community as well. Like, people felt, I don't know, Milton, you tell me as a collector how you felt, but it wasn't meant to be like, get in line, everybody, and like, pushing people out like a machine. It was meant to really be something that resonated with collectors and helped develop the relationship between artists and collectors. And I wanted it to obviously be beneficial for Gabe as well. Like, he's not meant to be like, dance monkey dance. Like, he's not meant to perform sort of thing. It's meant to really help him as well. Obviously build relationships with collectors, and it comes back to just harnessing a great community and really providing the correct infrastructure for that. So I'm glad you said it was memorable. It was definitely a fun one, just seeing people out there, and I definitely think in terms of other people that were present, like NFC had a big audience and a huge mix of ordinals and different types of communities. So I do think Gabe kind of resonated with a lot of people in terms of standing out. So yeah, I hope I answered your question there.
Yeah, 1,000%. I'm flexing our portraits, our individual and our group portraits up there. So Vasia, I got yours and mine. And yeah, I will say it was designed for fun first. So Transient Labs had a bar. If you gave them their email, you could grab a drink. So you're grabbing your drink, you're chilling and vibing with the great people that Transient Labs staff, of course, is there. But then you're at the forefront of people walking in and walking out to the main stage. And then Gabe's sitting there and chopping it up. And Gabe is just full of life. He's a great personality. He's very down to earth. He just likes chopping it up and shooting the shit. So we had a great time talking to him, and it was so carefree that Violet actually took over his iPad for a while and was doing my portrait to where we had to kick her off. There was a line forming. You said that wasn't the point wasn't to have people line up, and that didn't happen. Although, as people stopped and looked and saw what was happening on the iPad, and they see somebody sitting there as a muse, they do get interested. So people were lining up, and to the point where we said, "Hey, Violet, there's 2 or 3 people waiting for the portrait. We're going to have to keep this moving." But honestly, between my conversations with multiple people walking by as they gained attention and wanted to say hello, he was cool to just kind of do a little here, do a little there. We filled in the color palette. Once I got up and I saw it, I wanted to add a couple details. And so I was able to add my Pit Viper sunglasses, which I really wanted on there. And then he wanted to know about the color palette, and I'm sitting there looking. Of course, Transient had big screens. They had about 8 of them in the lobby. And I'm looking at a Brian Brinkman piece, and I said, "Oh, I want some of the Brian Brinkman's color palettes in there." So that was fun to be able to pick and choose from some colors, some inspirations that you saw around you as well. But I thought that was a great activation, and I would love to see you do more of those. Again, if you're an artist in the crowd and you want to make something like that happen. There was a great response to that. I think it got people that were Web3 and not Web3. We were talking to some people about how that worked with the NFT. And then if you weren't available, which you were, you stayed there the whole day. But if you were busy talking to somebody else, you also had a coworker, Yet, was there to help onboard people and get the people through the logistics, grab their emails, make sure that they were going to be informed when that physical was coming, how they request that physical, because of course they had the choice of three. So yeah, I was happy to collect that, and I thought we got a ton of bang for our buck on that as well. So that was a great event. Um, I wanted to move the conversation a little bit to maybe something that you're working on now. We talked a little bit about the podcast that you're doing. Can we chat about that just because you've had a great response? I think it's worth mentioning. You've had 300 plus listeners tune in to the podcast, and so we're going to be on episode 3 this week. Last week was talking a bit about artist management, and I always like to read the room too because F Dot's here, and F Dot was curating the Canal Street show on floor 2. And I think one of the most eye-opening experiences was talking to Hildebroom there, who was one of the curators. F Dot, I think for the first time, brought in 6 curators. So he had had one at Canal Street 2. I think he let go of a lot of control on this one and gave some creative freedom to 6 curators this time. And Hildebroom, I believe, was one of them. And I know that he was involved with some of the artists he's showing as an artist manager. So there were some really cool takeaways that we had on that show. Do you want to touch on that show and maybe what people could expect this week?
On the Twitter space? Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Co-host, for bringing your magic as well. It wouldn't be the same without you. So the whole purpose of the Twitter spaces, and yes, turned into a podcast where we're going to be uploading each episode to all the different platforms, and eventually we're going to launch the video version as well. So stay tuned. It's going to be every Wednesdays, 1 p.m. Eastern. But the whole purpose, Milton and I have been honestly talking about it for a long time, where we just wanted to have certain conversations and open it up for dialogue. I think that there's a lot of things in this space that, maybe him and I or people talk behind the scenes about, or, we see a couple of different tweets that go viral that have a lot of interactions in the comments and honestly a lot of different opinions. And I think it's important, especially because at the end of the day, like Web3 is still like the wild, wild west in many ways. Like, let's be honest, it's constantly evolving, it's changing, it's taking new directions, a lot of pivots, and it's okay to have the conversations. And a lot of us, I think, I don't want to say make it up as we go, but yeah, we do. Especially in 2021. I know I was definitely doing that a lot, and we don't know where the space is going to exactly be in the next 5, 10, 15 years. But I think it's really important to have conversations and create a safe space where everyone feels comfortable to share their opinions. And so what we're focusing on is each week kind of going through Twitter. I'm excited. I'm going to be posting it later today, whose tweet we were inspired by this week. But basically just going off of and reading the room, like seeing that a lot of people gravitated toward this tweet. A lot of conversations are being had. It's usually things where it's a bit more of a debate, perhaps, and just, opening up the stage where we're having the conversation, inviting the people who are commenting on the tweets, like having them share their opinions and their takes. It's not about us really hogging the mic at all. And the most important thing for me is at the end of each space, I really want to make it a point that there's some kind of key takeaway or action steps. And what I mean by that is, the first episode was about the importance of onboarding, and the second portion to that space was and how to do it, because it's great. Yeah, we need to onboard. We all know that, and we're all here because we believe, NFTs and Web3 are here to stay. But how do we actually bring people in? And I think that to me is the more important. Like, how can someone, and we mentioned, Milton, like things that you can do today. Like if each of us told 2 friends today, like right there, we just onboarded a bunch of people. So it was, a bit more actionable steps. Last week's space was about artist management services, and we're talking about, how the evolution of how in 2021 people didn't really want managers, and now they do. And there was a bunch of artists, talking about that. And then we reached toward the end of the space. It's like, okay, that's great. But guess what? Majority of the time, artist management services unfortunately need a budget. So what do you do if you don't have a budget for one? And I didn't want people to jump off the space going, well, fuck me, like I don't have a budget for artist management services. So it was really important that at the end we tapped into, well, listen, if you don't have a budget, these are a few things that you can do now, and just some action items, a bit more of a direction and key takeaways. And so each space, I want to make sure that that we end with something of value to the listeners. And I cannot believe how many people tuned in the last both times. I mean, the first time it was almost 200, I think, and then last time it was over 350, and I mean almost doubled the numbers. It's just super overwhelming. Super grateful for the amount of people that find it important and want to tune in, and I'm extremely excited to just see the growth of it. I think we're going to be having some very interesting conversations that need to be had, and it's all coming from a place, as much as I joke that it's like, oh, the spicy take and we're going to be going at it, like it's absolutely not. We open up the floor and have people just come on stage as well and contribute, and it's about just having a good conversation. Even if we decide at the end to agree to disagree, that's totally fine. It's just having fun along the way. So yeah, I'm excited, Milton. Thank you for co-hosting these with me.
So cool to hear from you, opening up a space that's more geared towards your strength, but then also giving the voice of those that are not, I guess, don't really share because they probably don't feel the safe environment. We tend to have an environment and we host spaces hoping that people feel safe to share. And so at this time, I want to welcome anyone that wants to ask you a question, and feel free to ask away, ask any questions, or DM Vasia, as she is very open to her DMs and very responsive as well. You can also reach her at the Moment Agency space or page. So please go follow her. But Vasia, we're so honored. I'm honored and grateful that you joined us to speak a little bit more about what you are doing and the impact that you're having. Because I believe in what you're doing, and I believe in the impact that you're having is for the positive for artists, but not just artists, brands in the space that are trying to grow and develop. And you share a lot. And so we're just grateful for your wisdom, but also your expertise. So if you have a question, you want to come up and ask Vasia anything, this is the time. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you as much as we want to hear from Vasia and Milton here. But we're very excited for the future. I was a part of the activation, or not a part of, but I was at NOC Lisbon, and I didn't have the, I guess, the nerve to do my portrait here with Gabe, but he was amazing. I talked to him for a little bit. He was just, chilling while he's drawing, and I think it was so great. It was such a fun experience. Like Milton said, people just walked up and just had conversations, and it was kind of like, hey, what are you guys doing? This is amazing. Wow, this looks great. Oh, this is fun. It was like positive feedback around and around. And the same at the Canal Street, like Milton was mentioning. We had such a great conversation with Hilda, with different people that were there, just having a great time looking at art, but then also enjoying conversation. I think the benefit of having IRL experiences is taking away something that impacted you. And I think these conversations that we had IRL triggered into something that you were doing. I know you and I talked about art representing or artists represented by different companies here. And so I'm grateful to learn and hear from people that are doing impactful things in this space, that sometimes we don't know that that's happening, especially if we're not part of IRL events. We don't know that these conversations are happening, or these things are happening, and they're very impactful. That's why I wanted to bring you onto the space so that you can share what you're doing, because I think it's fantastic. But I think there's so much benefit that we can either help you give back, but then also support you, encourage you as you're on the journey of brands, representing brands and representing artists in the space. We think that's so great. But the way you're doing it is impactful, and so I'm grateful for you, Vasia.
Thank you. And I just wanted to quickly say, I mean, there's definitely, of course, a lot of things behind the scenes that we don't know other people are doing and building. And it's super easy to get lost amongst, I guess, the noise and the chaos, and sometimes a lot of the negative things that are being, I guess, spotlighted. But I just wanted to point out and say, first of all, thank you guys again for having me on. And it's comments like those that, the small words of encouragement can go such a long way in terms of motivating someone and really keeping them going. And I remember times with the Crypt Gallery. I mean, Jesus, like moments where I was like, I felt so overwhelmed and stressed and like, again, making things up as we were kind of going, but just just really discouraged. And then you would have someone from the Discord or someone like DM you or make a comment, and it can go such a long way where it fuels you to continue building, to continue taking risks, to continue down the path, even in moments where you don't necessarily believe in yourself. So I just want to say thank you guys for always supporting, for the kind words, for hosting today's space, and doing what you're doing with light art in general, having the community spotlight. I think it's definitely very empowering, and it's what the community is all about. So thank you guys again for all that you do.
We're grateful. Go ahead, Milton.
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of community, that's something we always like to touch on here. And I know you've been working with the Trevor Jones project and his team, and especially building community on that side. And one of the most impactful, most important segments of the weekly spaces that you host there on Thursdays at noon Eastern is a community spotlight. Do you want to touch on the community spotlight that takes place on the Trevor Jones spaces and how people might get involved in that?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can, Milton, I would love for you to pin it too. Actually, the tweet that I put out this morning has the application link. But essentially, what Milton and I co-host the spaces on Thursday for Trevor and the Crypto Angels community. And one of the things that was really important for us was, it goes back to just using your platform to be able to give back to others. And the community spotlight was meant to, first of all, just get people interacting and getting to know each other more, especially leading up to IRL events like Castle Party next year. It's nice to, beyond just like the casual GMs, it's nice to have a backstory about people. It's nice to know people a little bit further so that when you do meet in person, it's almost like the icebreaker is already like done, right? And the second component was really to give people a platform to talk about what they're doing, to talk about who they are, how they got into Web3, what they're currently working on. And, organically we start talking about Trevor and the community and their introduction there, but it's really meant to give them a platform to just, she'll talk about your stuff, introduce yourself. And I think the more that we do that, the more we're just cultivating organically a community that is going to have those diehard followers. And for me, that's the most important. It's always about quality over quantity. If we were looking to build community through a bunch of bots, like we would have had the 100,000 followers at this point. But to me, it really comes down to bringing in the right people, attracting the right people to the community. And again, just giving them the opportunity to really share more about themselves and use the platform that we've built to also benefit them in return. And we've been doing weekly edits. Abrahani actually came on. She was one of the community spotlights one week as well. And it was great having her and hearing more of her story as well. And there was things that I didn't even know about her and her personal journey right now with her family moving and all these other components. So it just enhances relationships, and that's what the community is all about in general. So it's been awesome working with Trevor. It's been an amazing opportunity. And again, very blessed to have Milton as my co-host with the Crypto Angel Spaces as well. So I have a lot of fun with them.
Okay, cool. So if you want to get involved, you can check the Jumbotron here, and you've got the Crypto Angels Community Spotlight link. It's a simple one-page form on Google Docs. You fill that out, and we'd love to have you on the spaces as well. And I don't want to be here on a shill session, but I think it's really important what you do for Trevor. And we do have the Castle Party coming up. You talked about the importance of production and events is one of the three pillars of what you do at Moments. And I know you're going to be involved in helping to produce the Castle Party next year. So just again, reading the room, I think there's a lot of people who are NFC fans in the house. I know Yet was there. I met Ruby there. F. Dot was there. I was taking a drone of him a couple years ago as he was painting outside. So I know we've got lots of visitors to NFC, and we've got the Castle Party coming up directly after NFC, which is going to be an epic event. Somehow Trevor manages to do this bigger and better each year. First year, of course, was in Edinburgh. The second year was in France. And then this year, conveniently located in Sintra, just outside of Lisbon. He's going to do it right after the non-fungible conference. So maybe you can touch on a little bit about what we can expect. I know we haven't released all the details, so we can't speak on everything just yet, but we have a lot in place at the moment. Do you want to talk about a little bit about your part in helping to produce the Castle Party for 2025 in Sintra?
Shill. Um, Milton, you and I will always shill Trevor. No, in all seriousness, I do talk a lot about Trevor, but it's because I genuinely believe in what he's doing, what he's building, how he moves, more importantly, and you know the type of character and person that he is. And regarding Castle Party in general, listen, we've all been to a lot of. Oh, speaking of the devil, did he just pop in? Hi, Trev. We were just talking about castle parties, so if you want to join at any point, feel free. But yeah, wow, what was I going to say? But in general, Castle Party, yeah, so we've all been to a bunch of Web3 events. And I think the thing that really stands out to me about Castle Party is it's an extremely well executed event, period. And a lot of the Web3 events haven't always been. But it's genuinely, I think I consider it the event of the year. Absolutely. In terms of how well he brings together people through art, but he brings them together. It's not just a party. Like I know obviously we advertise it as Castle Party, but there's so much more to that. And I got to go to the second one, so last year in France, and I was just blown away by, I think the thing that stood out the most was obviously the community that he attracted, the people that he brought together. It was small and intimate, but it was such a well curated group of individuals where whoever you're talking to, it's just like everyone resonates with you. And I got to leave there not only making friends and people that I now consider extremely close friends and have established really good relationships with, but there's also been like networking and business that's come because of the opportunity at Castle Party. So I think in general, that's a huge takeaway. And then of course, just being in a castle or being in that type of venue, and Portugal looks beautiful. I can't wait to go and see it in person, but the venue, the history, the culture that's there, the type of entertainment that Trevor brings in, where it reflects the actual culture of the country that we're in. So I'm very curious because I don't know that much about Portuguese culture, but I'm very curious to see the type of entertainers, dancers, the music that comes in, and of course one of my favorite things is obviously the charity component, and it's something that we don't always highlight as one of the key takeaways, but it each year he's had a art auction where essentially degens are kind of doing good. And we were talking about impact earlier, right? Talk about impact, where he's bringing together a bunch of headlining artists that are having a charity auction. It's going to Maggie's, which supports families that are going through someone in their family is going through cancer treatments, and it's a very difficult moment of their lives, and no one really, I think, talks about that, how it genuinely impacts the entire family. And unfortunately, I think we live in a day and age where we all kind of know someone that's been in that position. If, maybe some of us are going through that right now. So I think it's just an incredible cause, and it's bringing us together, to just, to have a larger impact. So I've babbled a little bit too much. I'm going to give the mic to Trevor, who just joined. Trevor, I don't know if you heard us because your ears must have been ringing. We literally had just brought you up in the conversation.
I see everything. I hear everything. No, I've just been trying to multitask a bunch of stuff, and I just saw light art posted and just popped up, and I saw Vasiamakris, CEO of Moments Agency, and decided to join in, and here I am. So yeah, good to be here. Always good to hear your voice, Vasia. You missed quite the party in Ibiza, by the way. Speaking of Castle Party attendees and the friendships you make, it was absolutely hilarious. A place I thought I would never ever go to at my age, but it was sure a lot of fun with Lord Truffington and Tulipani and Dogecoin family, Hermie, and who else? Crypt was there. Sarah Main DJing every night. It was absolutely hilarious. Just nonstop laughter, but a very nice rest after so much of the stuff that going on and locking in the Castle Party location, and now just kind of getting the head down and working towards, as everything that you were saying there with regards to catering and entertainment and drinks and bars and all the fun stuff that we're going to bring to the table for everybody who's going to come. So looking forward to it, and just, figuring out tickets and Bitcoin angel holders and crypto angel holders and giving back to the community. And then, of course, the whole charity element, the philanthropy that was inspired by our good friend and OG, a lot of money, Philippe Fateau, who sadly passed away from cancer a couple of years ago. So that's become a big part of this whole event, and to be able to have raised now about 175,000 for Maggie's, who does excellent work supporting people suffering from cancer and their friends and family as just a kind of a support mechanism. With 26 locations all across the UK and a couple now, I believe in Barcelona and Japan. So they are really doing amazing things all around the world, and to be able to support them as strongly as we have, I mean, what we've been able to raise for them is absolutely enormous. And yeah, they're looking forward to, they've been to both castle parties now, and they're just completely in awe of the space and the people, and just absolutely loved every moment that they've spent with, us DGens, art and philanthropy and good times.
Well, thank you for joining us, Trevor. We are interviewing Vasia, but also her impact in the space, and that's where you came up and what she does with the community of the crypto angels, but then also what she's doing to help you set up with the castle party. And so we're giving Vasia flowers as she's also giving you flowers for what you're accomplishing. But then we're also talking about the impact that you're having in this space, not just because of a castle party, but overall what you're doing with your project and what she does and what she could do through Moments Agency for the space, for the brands, IRL communities, and also for artists. And so that's what you came in. So we know that your ears were ringing as we're posting more about the castle party. And Milton is like, well, we can't give out too much, but I still went ahead and posted about the post of the castle party. There's so much news happening, and we're just looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Definitely see everyone in NFC Lisbon 2025, and then there shortly after the castle party. Is there anything you want to share about the castle party that maybe you wanted to share that's a little new now since you are there and enjoying your time?
Oh gosh, it's just been nonstop. Just firstly want to say thank you, huge thank you to Vasia and to you, Hard Art Milton, an absolutely amazing team and I see Yet down there as well. So it's just been really, really cool working with you guys, and we've said this so many times before that, the space has been through ups and downs. I've been here since 2017 and been through the bulls and the bears. And the most important thing that has come out of it is the friendships you make. And these are lifelong friendships. So, being able to align with people that you really resonate with. And that's what the best thing is about these different IRL events that we go to, and especially the really special ones where you can spend a lot of time with individuals, that you just become the best of friends, and you're there to support each other and to help each other. And yeah, that's what I just, this space never ceases to surprise me and amaze me, with the, with the craziness, but especially with the true friends that you make through it all. I mean, the stories that we can tell from, with all of us, that we've got up here on stage. And the crazy thing is to think that we've really only known each other for 1-2 years, really. It's hard to believe that, Vasi and Milton and I have become such good friends, and yet, just recently met at NFC Summit in such a short amount of time, and now we talk to each other constantly, daily almost. It's been great. So yeah, just looking forward to. I see some other people down there from Castle Party before. Becca, I see Medikind down there who wants to come. There's Dogecoin family. Hi, Hermie. Hopefully recovered from Ibiza. Jose, Supermodel Gamer. I Ready. Yeah, loads of awesome people. So looking forward to seeing hopefully lots of you in Lisbon next year. I will just end on that because I don't want to take up all your time, Vasia. You've got more important things to say, and you've got a much nicer voice than I do. So I'm still trying to get my voice back after. I just actually got a message from Lord Truffington. We dropped him off at the airport, and he went straight to Madrid to see his family. I think his brother's in Madrid. He's based in London, but he literally lost his voice. So he said as soon as he got off the flight, he's got zero voice. So that's the kind of fun we had. And I can sense my voice going a little bit as well too. So just want to say Hi, thanks for the love, and yeah, sending lots of love and hugs back to all of you guys as well. So I will listen in while I try to do some more stuff with regards to everything else that's going on right now. So thanks again, and talk to you soon.
Cheers, Trevor. Thanks for coming up and saying hello. We need more people like you to do so. We got a bunch of shy people in the crowd, but thank you for joining us, and we are all looking forward to Castle Party 2025, and we'll be announcing more details about that week by week, including this Thursday on Spaces, where Vasia is a great co-host on that show with myself. So, Vasia, I wanted to ask you, as we're starting to wrap up here, we normally ask the artists about some advice that they might give. Looking over the market and having these great conversations with a lot of people in the space right now, is there any advice that you might give? And it could be to anybody, to artists, collectors, anybody that's still here, the few of us that have survived. Is there anything that you want to say as a piece of advice to people here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just a matter of just being authentic and like keep it simple, be authentic and be genuine. And it's something that we touched upon last week during our Spaces, Milton, about, you know, and I've experienced it personally. Like when you meet people, especially IRL, you get a vibe, you understand, I guess, the type of people that they are. And the people that are the most genuine and just authentic to who they are, it shows and they stand out because of that. And more importantly, as we're trying to all build, as we're all trying to get ahead, like when you cultivate a relationship with someone, like the worst feeling is basically getting a text, and we've all probably experienced this, getting a text from someone, seeing someone's name on your phone and going, oh, what do they want? Like, I know that that person's hitting me up because they want something, and that's such a horrible feeling. And so it doesn't matter if you're an artist or a collector, whatever your role in this space is, I think it's a matter of just building genuine relationships and friendships, because your friends are going to want you to win. Your friends are going to go out of their way, do favors for you, quote unquote favors. They're going to do things for free, if we're going to be honest about it, because they want you to win. And because when you win, everyone wins. Like that's how I view it in my mind. So it's really a matter of just, being a genuine person. And I think it's really important. Your network at the end of the day is your net worth. And it's a matter of just aligning yourselves with the right individuals that resonate with you, and, maintaining those relationships and just keeping it real and being genuine. I mean, just don't, be a bad person. I would keep it simple. But yeah, time and time again, I think it's just like the overall theme to life. I think that's the only way to really get ahead, and time will tell with a lot of these types of relationships and people. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents. I think my advice for people.
I think that's great advice. And I think if you look through the crowd right now and you scroll through people like Trevor, like F. Dot, Sigma X, Finn, Dogecoin Family, David Oxley, Sage to Savage, Jose, Ruby, Mo Hagri, Andres, Becca Rios. If you look here, you're going to see a lot of real people. Laura L., Richard Matza, Ida, a bunch of these people are genuine. I think that's one of the beautiful things that we're experiencing in our space right now, is that if you're still here, you're probably here for the right reasons, and you're usually focused on the art and not other things that come along with bull markets. There's a person that came up in my DMs today that's returning to the space conveniently when the money's returned. I won't name names, but I think you could probably do the math. Their name happens to be full of numbers, so do the math on that one. But but be genuine. Yeah, I'm with you, Vasia. You don't want to get those texts where somebody's asking for something. You're hoping you get a text from somebody giving you an opportunity. That's the last text that I got from you, which got me involved in Subjective Art Festivals. So you're always giving and providing opportunities for people, which I appreciate. So thank you so much, Vasia. I'm going to leave it with that, on that positive note. That's great advice. And Abrahani, I'll let you give any more closing words.
We're just so grateful, Vasia, for your time, for your advice, for sharing what you do, for moments, for giving back, for creating such an impact, a positive impact in this space. We're always trying to find those genuine connection with people, and I'm so grateful that I find a friend in you. And so I'm grateful that you were able to take some time out to be here. If you don't know Vasia, if you want to reach out to Vasia, if you one or another way want to connect with her, go to Moments Agency, tag her, DM her, find her, and connect with her. And I see that your hand is up, Vasia, so please speak.
So sorry, just one last thing before we jump off. I just wanted to quickly close with, all of us have our crazy kind of journeys, but we would never, no successful person gets to where they got without a support system and a team behind them. So I just wanted to take a second and really emphasize that and say thank you to all of those, like from the random strangers that helped me in these weird moments, like at Crypt Gallery, where I just, whatever crazy kind of moments, the people that contributed very small things to the people that really go above and beyond to help you out. And I obviously want to shout out Yet down below. He's my right hand guy. Well, definitely wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him working behind the scenes and helping me out. And people like Milton, of course, and obviously Trevor as well. And everyone else along the way too, just even as something as small as your support or a nice comment that literally I mentioned earlier, just can fuel you and motivate you. And it goes a very long way. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that supported, that everyone that's shown love. And it's all about just building a great team. And I'm very grateful for the amazing individuals that I'm surrounded by, and I wouldn't be here without them. So I just wanted to take a second and really acknowledge that. And thank you both for hosting today's space, for inviting me on. I had a great time and again, just grateful for all the opportunities and for the crazy journey that I've been on.
What a fun journey that is. Thank you so much, Vasia. And with that, we'll end here this space. Thank you so much for joining us. Go find something positive to do today, this Tuesday, and tweet about it. I want to hear what you've accomplished in this space, in this day today. But with all that, thank you so much for coming by. Thank you, Vasia, for your fun nuggets. We totally enjoy them. And with that, have a great Tuesday.